One thing I've always wanted to do since I was 9 years old is write a book, publish a book. When I was 9 years old, my teacher asked us to write a short story. Mine was 46 pages long. And she began reading it to the class, but that never concluded because it was just too much. But she was very impressed and she gave me a lot of encouragement and positive feedback. My writing was not, how you say, professional. I was a developing young creative, but I just loved the freedom of losing myself in the imagination and creating this whole narrative and developing the characters, developing the world, and that has never left me. But I've always had this other interest where I've looked at my own life like a movie where I'm the director, or like a story where I'm the writer. And those two fascinations have coalesced to form this idea of deliberately and purposefully living an incredible story so that I can write about it in the future. That's always been the intention. Like, since I was a tiny kid, like, I had that idea, and it's been sometimes running in the background, sometimes it's been very conscious and deliberate and even explicit, like I've been telling people, like, I'm living this story so that I can tell it later, so that I can write it later, so that I can captivate an audience with the story that I'm creating by living it later. And this is not an uncommon thing. A lot of people have this kind of, let's call it a fantasy. It could be a fantasy, it could quite easily become a reality, which is the point of this diary and what I'm sharing right now, because I'm thinking, I'm contemplating, will I make this a reality, or is this something that I want to let go of so that I can actually make space to stop making decisions based on, will this look good in the story, which is a whole thing. It's very romanticized idea. It's a very romantic idea to live your life as a novel, as a story to be told. It brings out a lot of entitlement. Like, I am here to be the hero of my own journey. Everything is supposed to be a spectacular battle of good and evil or whatever, but it just is. And I've found that some of the most captivating stories have been what some might call mundane or ordinary. One of my favorite television shows is The Office, where they just follow around a bunch of people who work at a paper company. It's fictional, it's not a real paper company. I've brought it up before, but yeah, that show has taught me that, like, there's beauty in the ordinary, and it's kind of balanced my ideas about living life, because when I was young, I really did believe that everything had to be extraordinary. I was trying to turn everything up to the max, and that led me down all kinds of roads that were not beneficial. Led me to drugs and alcohol, led me to partying like a wannabe rock star, because I also read other people's, like, biographies, their life stories about all of the crazy things that they did. And I'm still fascinated by those very extreme stories of people who have gone through the most, like, overwhelming, exhilarating, out of this world experiences, both positive and negative. I still go to events where I listen to people talk about how they've overcome, like, this criminal background lifestyle where they were, running with the worst crowds and surrounded by drugs and guns and violence, and then they realized that they had to make it all better. And I always find, like, yeah, there's definitely more intrigue around those kinds of stories where you've really pushed the boundaries of living to the absolute limits and found the edges of what you can endure before you come back to like being in a grounded place. And yeah, like in a lot of times in my life I've thought like, why didn't I go even further? Like it would be so much more of a compelling and thrilling narrative if I had have actually not stopped there, and I had have actually made more of a mess of my life. But like, how unhealthy is that? And that's what I'm kind of realizing in the present moment. And I don't know, I've learned a lot of lessons and I've seen a lot more depth by exploring the highs and lows of living. But I don't know, I'm kind of stuck in a loop here in this moment, just thinking like, was it a good idea to do all those things? I wasn't consciously trying to make my life hard for myself. I wasn't consciously trying to create complications and obstacles to overcome. A lot of the decisions that I made while I was younger were, I honestly believed that it was going to be more exciting, like more joyful, more fulfilling to like party like a rock star, do all the drugs, or travel the world, you know, at all costs. Like just make it happen, make it thrilling, make it a roller coaster journey so that it sounds good, it sounds exciting. So there were a lot of different influences that came into my life at an early age, and I read some biographies, like I said, and watched some movies. But it's been recently that I've been thinking or rethinking the idea of your life as a story, because I've already written 2 full autobiographical pieces that, you know, are ready for publishing, but they will never be published. They're both the same story, but they're totally different. Like it's both about, you know, my life up until my late 20s, but totally different perspectives. And I think that every time I write it, it would be different again and again and again. And the issue that I've found with autobiographical writing for me is I can't allow myself to be as honest as I would like to be. And I can't allow myself to, like, one thing I have an aversion to is telling stories about other people, or yeah, it feels like I don't want to do that for a multitude of reasons. But there was one story that I wrote out of all of the, I'm going to turn around because I'm nearly back at the car, all of the times where I sat down and I spent a lot of time writing, there was one story that I wrote that was totally fictional, and it's come back to my awareness. It was very short, it was probably like 5,000 words, but it's also one of the best stories that I ever wrote, because I created a character that was fictional and I allowed myself to just put all of the things that I wanted to put into that character and into that story. And it was so simple. It was just like, the premise of the story was this person is lost. Their life is meaningless. They're like the office drone, you know, that stereotypical beginning to so many stories. And they hear about this guru. So they're like, okay, here's my chance. I'm going to go change my life. And they drive this huge amount of distance. The traffic's really bad. The car breaks down. Like everything goes wrong, but they just push through to get to this guru. Like, and they finally get there. It takes forever. They knock on the door. The guru takes one look at them, slams the door in their face. And they're like, what the hell was that? Like, I just went through so much to get here, and that's all I get. And then from then, because the intent has been set that they want to change their life, they look for other ways. Okay, the guru didn't work out, so what else can I do? And they basically go on this journey where they find these gurus that are increasingly more and more difficult to get to all over the world, and go on this journey to find somebody who can help them figure out their own life. And then, spoiler alert, the end of the story, they've gone and they've tried to find all these people, and nobody's actually given them any substance. Like, nobody's actually done anything for them. They've visited all these people, and one way or another, the door has been slammed in their face, like metaphorically or literally, or they just went through all these trials and tribulations to find out that it's not the person that lives at that place isn't even the person that was described. Like, it's totally different. Like, it just fails and fails and fails. They're always looking for this answer outside of themselves, and they never quite get there. And then the end of the story is they're finally home, and they've finally realized that nothing outside of themselves can give them the answers that they're looking for. Then they hear a knock at the door. And they open the door, and there's some like bright-eyed, jolly young person that's looking for answers and wants them to help them figure out their life. They take one look at them and slam the door in their face. Like, it goes full circle. And that's supposed to, elicit this response in you, the reader or the listener right now, that makes you realize that nothing outside of you is ever going to give you the answers that are actually already within you, but you've just been ignoring because you're always looking outside. So that, like, for the character to go on this huge journey and look at absolutely everything that's outside of them, I was hoping it would sort of trigger off an awakening or an awareness in the reader where they don't have to go and do that. Like, they can just realize right now, like, life is the classroom. These experiences are what are going to help you grow and evolve and learn. And so what I'm thinking and feeling in the present moment is I'd like to revisit that. And perhaps that will be the conclusion to the dream of publishing something real. That I've always wanted to do that since I was like 9 years old, and I first got given the assignment to write a short story, which it turned out to be 46 pages. I don't know if and when I will actually make the time to do this, because I've also found that writing is a process that I can't do it while I'm doing a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, one of the times that I wrote the most was when I was driving around in the ute by myself all over Australia, and there was like absolutely no external stuff going on, so the story kind of like flowed in my head and there was no interruptions. I find with the video diaries too, and even making like more complex video content, like if there's too much other stuff going on in my life, like I got a lot going on with career right now and a lot going on with my own personal development, and like I'm pushing my comfort zone in appearing in a lot more places and putting myself out there a lot more, and I'm receiving a lot more reaction, and it's like, whoa, like when there's a lot of reaction, whether it's my own internal reaction to what's happening out there, or there's people out there that are reacting to me and I'm managing my reaction to their reactions, that becomes like so much of a distraction that it breaks that flow, that creative flow. So I can't write a book or record a feature film, direct a feature film or anything while I'm in that personal development process. And I think I planned to get back to, making that flow available for myself again sooner, but I've stayed in this personal development and growth and evolution mode, because I know the more of this kind of challenging myself that I do, the better it's going to be when I finally do sit down at a keyboard and punch that story out and have the courage to finally show anyone, because pretty much nobody's seen what I've written, like, at all, ever, which is really bad, because I probably need a lot of feedback. I also want to do a bunch of creative writing courses and learn the skills and learn how to introduce a character really well, introduce the setting and the storyline, and I want to know how to develop the characters. I want it to be a whole thing. It's going to be very involved, and it's going to take a lot more time than just oh, you know what, when I was 9 I wanted to write a book, so I did it and boom, then it's done. I'm sure a lot of people have done that and had success, and I know I've definitely had enough practice that I've developed good writing habits and techniques, and I can definitely get an audience engaged with just my writing, and the speaking practice probably translates into written communication abilities as well. But yeah, like, I don't know, this is just a dream of mine, and that's what my thoughts and feelings are about today. If you get anything out of these videos, please pass them on to anybody else you know who may benefit. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave your comments down below. Love to hear your thoughts and feelings that are emerging while you're listening to me express my thoughts and feelings. And yeah, I record these whenever I can, and I publish them in a way that makes sense to me. They're time delayed. So right now, this moment probably happened about 2 months ago. That's the time delay is about 2 months from recording to publishing. And that just gives me a little bit more time and space to sit with my thoughts and feelings before I put them on display for everybody else to respond to. And that's been one of the best ideas that I ever had.